Welcome to Permission for Pleasure, where we empower women and men to create liberated empires anchored in leadership harmony in service of your highest mind, body, and soul wellness. I am your host, Amy Jones, and in today's episode, we're going to connect with my dear friend, Claudia Tressel. She is an intuitive guide, and I'm super excited to talk with her today. We're going to be talking about masculine and feminine energetic harmony, which is foundational to our healthy mind, body, and soul wellness. And I have spirit chills when I'm saying this. I'm really excited to talk with you. We're going to spend about 30 minutes and we're going to go into Claudia's story, where this came from, where we're going, and what you can learn about healthy masculine energy in harmony with your feminine. So excited to have you here today. Thank you, Claudia.
Hi, Amy, and everybody. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be with you, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm excited to speak about this because that's my heart desire.
Well, as you know, my mission is to bring harmony to masculine and feminine energy in intimate relationships. So I think this is going to be a really fun conversation.
That's how we connected. Yes.
Totally. So let's start for inspiration. What inspired you? What ignited this journey, this desire to deliver and share this message and create some impact in your world? I'd love to hear what inspired you.
Yeah, I think I can go back as far as being a little child. I've always been a very intuitive person from early on, even though I didn't always quite understand it as a child because I didn't have a lot of role models around it. But I've always felt that there was a disharmony when I watched, for example, the energy between my grandparents, my grandmother and grandfather. And there was always a lot of difficulties and a lot of lack of understanding. And it was creating a lot of conflict for me as a child because I loved them both dearly and they were just bickering at each other. There was a lot of bitterness, to be honest. And, you know, as an adult going back, I understand where this lack of understanding came from because my grandfather was in the war, and we can't even imagine what people have gone through, and the women at home trying to hold down the fort, and then this man comes back with PTSD. We have words for this now, right? But back then they didn't have words and support. So there was a lot of trauma that was unresolved, and from that came a real energy of men hating, and that carried forth in the generations. And I saw that in my mom too. And I felt all my life this didn't work for me. This didn't fit right and sit right. And I didn't quite understand it till I got, you know, as an adult, I learned to understand that relationships were tricky for me. And I've done a lot of counseling. I've done a lot of things to improve myself my entire life. And I felt like there were limits to it when it came to the energetics. Now, again, in hindsight, I understand that because we're not just a mind, we're also an emotion, a soul. There's stuff that's carried forth from the lineage, and there's stuff that goes on way beyond what's logical for us. And this is how I came across during a time that was very difficult for myself. I came across a modality called Psyche. And I was actually just helping out a friend who would ask me to stand in as an energetics for a relationship balance she was doing with her sister, who I've never met. But I was really close to my friend. And so I'm like, yeah, sure. So we stood across from each other, and the facilitator guided us through the motions. And as soon as she did this introduction of putting me energetically into this energy of my friend's sister, I felt different, like very different. There was something in my belly that felt off. I'm like, I don't know. I didn't understand it at the time. And a part of the process was we had to stand across from each other and look in each other's eyes deeply for half a minute. I couldn't do it. I was like, what the heck is going on with me? I could not do it. So the best possibilities, we walked through the process, and it was beautiful and touching, and we cried, and there was a lot of stuff going on. And when the process was completed, you know, we did a little debriefing, and she asked me, you know, what was that like? And I'm like, it was the weirdest thing. I could not look at you. And she's like, yeah, that's exactly my sister and I, the relationship we have is she could never look me deeply in the eyes. That would be way too uncomfortable for her. And then I was like, sharing the feeling I had in my belly. And she's like, yeah, she's got uterus problems going on, and I'm like, whoa. So this blew me away. And I'm like, I got to learn more about this. So it fired me really up into this whole energetics that's way beyond the logic of our relationships, and the doors that opened up through my training then just blew me away. So yeah, it's something that really lights me up.
I have to say, first off, as you're talking, I think a tornado or something just flew by my house. Like the amount of wind, and I apologize because I kept looking and I'm trying not to, but I've never seen wind like that. And it was just as we started talking about this. And and I have learned that there are no mistakes in the universe. And
No, they're not.
I also echo that everything is energy. And we don't realize, like, I wish people, like, I wish that we learn about this in school, about energy. I mean, now, because you're right, we have
Yes.
words for things now, but before it was kind of like, that just kind of is, or we're so disconnected, we didn't even connect. And
Yeah.
what was coming up for me as you were talking was safety and trust. And I'm laughing because I'm like, this whole storm's going by and it's forcing me to connect in and really anchor safety and trust in our conversation. And like you said, you can't look at your friend in the eye during this energetic experience. And I was really getting distracted. And it was just like a beautiful synchronicity of like energy and connecting and creating this sacred trust. And this is why we have these like layers and layers of historical attachments, of woundings and traumas and anger and frustration and lack of safety in relationships, because you look at the husband and wife that grew up like in our generation with our parents. It was the same thing. There wasn't trust, or there wasn't safety foundationally, generationally, energetically, as try as you might, because there's this history that we are bringing into our reality of unsafety. And so we're creating this like connection and this safety in relationships. And it comes down to respect and love and trust. And all of that is the foundational masculine energy within us, which allows interdependent foundational stability in relationships. But if you're not stable, you're not going to feel safe to connect and to trust and to like have these healthy relationships. And I love that you're here to help men and women learn how to literally create inner stability and inner safety in a healthy, harmonious way, because that is the future of where we are going. We're moving away from do as I say, do as I want you to, versus trust and self-leadership. And that's the anchor of foundational stability. And like the inner masculine within us sees your healthy inner masculine. And then that's where that safety comes in. And then that's where we can then look each other in the eye and have this beautiful heart-centered conversation with all the, because now there's like snow and everything going around and I'm not as distracted, because we're creating this beautiful, safe container of love and respect and connectedness. Like, and we never knew how to do this. And so we're learning, but it's all based on this nuance of energy, this energetic exchange. And you release the, well, this is what I think I should be doing, to, well, this is how I want to feel. That's energy. And like, this is like, this whole box is opening up about a new way of communicating, which is like,
yeah. I love that phrase, open and curious. That is one of my favorite phrases. If we can be open and curious to each other, we make such a difference, such a world of a difference. Yeah, so much.
It's anchored in trust, like trust in yourself, and going so slowly, because you don't want to like fry your nervous system and clam up.
And that's where we're all coming from, right? We're coming from this place of protecting our hearts, and
we don't want to get hurt. We just
no. And I find, unfortunately, what I've shared with you earlier, I find that I am really grateful how we have energetically really worked on empowering women for the last, I don't know, maybe 50 years. We've done a lot of work to empower women to find their voices, and that's wonderful. And sometimes, as with a lot of things, maybe we've gone overboard a little bit. And I'm not saying that we have done too much support for women. I think there's endless more needed. But what I have seen is sometimes from, places that are unhealed themselves, that where there is maybe without awareness, there is that implied idea that somebody who's born in a male body just by birth, that there's a certain guilt, a certain kind of feeling there's something wrong. And I've experienced that from stories my son shared with me not till much later, where there was a girls' day, a girls' empowerment day in the school, where they were taking the girls out and getting their nails done, having pizza and watching movies about girl empowerment. And that is so cool. And then as I asked him, well, what did you guys do? What did the boys do? And nothing. We were doing math and the girls were basically teasing them about it. And
there's an unwritten expectation that men should know how to be based on what was done in the past. And I'm using
it's so confusing. There's no role model. There's no template. I mean, there isn't a good template for us women either at this point, but there's a heck of a lot more than there is for men. And I find it really difficult to see. And my good friend and astrologer, Martin, is somebody that's been putting that term into my mouth over and over. And I really love it. He calls it the ancestral rage, where there is this kind of energetics that's carried forth. And a lot of us have that. It's that sort of feeling of like there was this imbalance a long, far way back. I only know my grandparents' story. It might have gone even further back, but it's based out of the patriarchy, how women have been suppressed. And there was this smoldering anger towards men as a big picture, and maybe towards their individual man as well.
Because I need you to survive.
That's big. That's how you survived, yeah. And in our counterswing of that, we're created an idealism where men are not supposed to embrace their masculinity, and where it's negative every time. So what I've noticed moving from Europe to Canada, I find Canadian men seem to be even more affected to it, from my experience. I can't speak for all men, obviously, but it's been something I've noticed. There's a lot of confusion. How can I be, and who should I be, and how should I be? I want to be a good person. Men have a desire to help. Men have a desire to be of support. And it's been very much by society from early childhood on very questioned, and we're not doing each other a favor with that. And I mean, I'm really excited to see that now, like in the valley. I live on Vancouver Island, Comox Valley. There is at least 2 groups I know that are men's group forming, and that makes me so happy. And you know what you said earlier, the word safety, it makes me feel safe to know that the men are I'm getting chills just talking about it, to know there is brotherhood. They've got each other's backs, and it was almost in a way created like there's something wrong, like women connect in women ways. And I don't like to stereotypically, but there is certain parts that have been given. We can all choose within those, but women have had women's circles for such a long time now, and it's fabulous. But
I love my
men haven't had that support. Pardon?
I said, I love my women's circles. They are,
and that's wonderful.
And
yes,
what I love about this is we are creating a space for men to learn how to be healthy leaders, which is connected to trust and respect and safety and stability. And it's this beautiful exchange, because when you have this healthy man or masculine energy, and we have that within all of us, the feminine energy can turn down the hustle and the do, and can actually be in her feminine. Because feminine and women energetically by template aren't supposed to be doing the work. We're supposed to be just enjoying and being, and it's the masculine energy, and it's backwards, and it's this unraveling. And I love that you're creating space for men to do this. I love that this is so purposeful and passionate to what you do.
Thank you. I
Please
guess we
share.
haven't really shared the fact that I do hold circles here in the Comox Valley
Yeah.
once a month from men and women to come together. This was a bit of a, when this idea popped up, I was like, oh my God, what took me so long? Really, it was something smacked me in the face and finally told me that's what I need to do. And I had the intention of building this slowly. And I think it was the second one, maybe the second or third, but very early on, we just naturally ended up in this place with this deep listening, and we were across from each other, and the men were kneeling down and apologizing on behalf of all the men for all what they've done to women, not them personally, but some of the things personally. So it was a deep owning of everybody's stuff, and there was so many tears. And the women were kneeling down and apologizing for all the bitchiness that we've created and projected towards men. The ungrounded feminine can be a very powerful being that can be very destructive. And we've all experienced that within ourselves, right? Or if you pissed your mom off, that kind of stuff. And the amount of healing that happened in that one session was incredible. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened so easily. But when things line up, when it's time, then those things come. And it's time now. So I feel really grateful for that. And we've had some circles where there was only one man and there was more women, and I feel that was normal too, because I think it's really a matter of how we're in the collective, what's needed. And sometimes women have been having, there's so many women who've had really, really scary experiences with men, and they needed to feel safe first to bring in more men, and I love the fact that it's all regulating itself. And all I'm doing is I'm holding the container because I love it.
I love that you use the word regulating yourself, because when you let go and you trust to just whatever is meant to happen is happening as it's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. So tell me, where are you going? Where are you helping? What is the message that you want to leave of impact? What can people do? Maybe some guidance for men or women. What would you like to share that will help pay it forward and leave a paper trail of impact?
If I could, put it in a short, not good at short words, but I'll try my best, in the best way, is that if we're really, first and foremost of all, listening to the parts inside of us that are out of balance, whether that's our own inner masculine, our own inner feminine, or maybe even the inner child. Our last circle, there was a lot of inner child stuff that's coming up, and I feel that's in the collective right now. We all get to go back to do it all over again, even those of us that have done it many times. It's the kind voice inside of us. If we're having a chance to be kind with ourselves and stop the shooting and stop the cutting ourselves down for where we're not perfect yet, open and curious towards ourselves first. And then if we take ownership towards that healing, find people that resonate with us, that support us, that have something to offer that works for us. And from that place, if we do our work, then naturally those relationships closest to us will be affected by it. And again, I feel like there's so much potential if we're learning to respect and love each other in that same way. Like, again, like, you can't expect a woman to act like a man and a man like a woman, and we have all variations between that, but there's certain things that are very wired into our feminine or masculine nervous system, because we do come from cave people, and those things are still real. As much as I'm a fan of equality and everything is the same, I am, but there's certain things, if we honor those parts of us that are human animals, and if we bring that in, it's what's needed for each individual on their place of being a woman, being a man, being somewhere in between. If we're open and curious towards that and trying to find a way to create love and respect, there's a heck of a lot we can make a difference. And I feel like that's on a personal level as well as energetically on a global level, because everything that is happening fits into those two categories, I find.
I absolutely love that, because as I've learned, I've been on my spiritual journey, I don't know, gosh, 7 years, I think. And I as well really didn't understand energy when I was younger, and now it makes a lot of sense. And I
Mm,
see how things are playing out in front of me, and I can see the energetic difference. And that's beautiful because I have that grounded anchorness to just let things be, whereas before I'd kind of get in and this and that. But I love how, like, this is a journey. Like, we're not meant to like hustle to the end of our life and then relax. We're meant to enjoy every moment of every breath of every heartbeat as much as we can when we're
sometimes it's hard work in between, right?
100%, because then you get out of the intentional moment and then you go into automatic, and then you start yelling and screaming and this and that, and then coming back into the moment. But the more that you can come into the moment, the more you can enjoy. And I love that you use the word kindness, because that's something I've been saying within my family for the last 2 years, probably, which has been so transformational, because you can continue to be kinder and kinder and kinder and more compassionate and more understanding and more curious. And that is a very safe way of like letting that protection down and welcoming vulnerability safely, like one little piece at a time. Because if you jump and you do the whole thing, you're going to clam up. But if you do a little bit at a time, this is the journey of life and an enjoying. And like, we're meant to enjoy life. We're not meant to just be like this. And I love, like, that's harmony. It's the ebbing and the flowing. And sometimes we're in and sometimes we're out, but remembering to get back in and enjoying in that foundational stability of that healthy masculine energy that has us in each moment, so that the feminine can just enjoy the moment. Then you go to the next moment and then the next moment. Like, there's just so many layers to this, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, I could talk about this stuff all day, as you can tell.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to add too, I feel like when we can find these harmonies between two people, like, I feel like what happens is the way I see it energetically, there is kinks in the energy, generationally they come down from grandparents, parents, and so on. And if we're not doing the work, we'll carry them on just as they were to our children. But if we do the work, if we do whatever we can for ourselves, and sometimes it takes those energetics to iron out those kinks that the mind will never understand, then all of a sudden it's like a garden hose, right? We had all those kinks and nothing flows through, and all of a sudden love will flow through. And I'm feeling goosebumps as I'm saying that, because that's what's coming through. It's like, now I can actually open the flow of ancestry, of the love that was there long before my grandparents and their grandparents. We're here because of that, like we wouldn't have existed forth if there wasn't somebody raising us, nurturing us to some degree, even if they did it in a messy, incomplete way. And if we're doing that work, the love will be available to us into the world, right?
And like, how can you put words to energy and what you feel? And I love that you were inspired to expand into this journey through the therapy and the counseling, because you intuitively knew, like, the feminine doesn't speak and doesn't put words. And so sometimes it's just looking at your friend in the eye and just knowing. You don't need to say anything. You just know, and you heal in that moment. You don't need to share.
It's that animal body that knows by intuition, that knows by observing, right?
And that's that masculine space where you feel safe, where you don't have to do anything. You just be, and you enjoy the moment and you dance. And that's the harmony. And like, I have spirit chills with that now, because how do you teach this? You have to just, you have
experience
to,
it.
You have to experience it. And then when you start to experience energy, you're like, oh wow, this is like a whole world I did not know existed. This is magic. So you host circles. How else are you connecting and helping people, and how can people connect with you?
I work one-on-one with people. That's my preferred way. I mean, I love the circles as well. I shouldn't say that. Circle is like a whole different story. But I do love one-on-one work, or if I support two people that are creating more harmony within a relationship, I also invite two people. But the beauty of this work is also, let's say, for example, if a person has trouble with a person that isn't willing to come, we can do a relationship balance without that person being present, given that we get permission from spirit, which is something I always do in my work. We muscle test if it's safe and appropriate for both people. And then we can have either myself or someone else stand in for this other person and do the energetics, and they will feel it whether they know it or not. The energy is so, like I said, that's where I feel like Harry Potter.
I love this, and I've experienced this. And if you, some people might not know what this means. So to clarify, you have two people. And so the person that feels the energy, is it the person that you're getting the permission from spirit that's disconnected from the intimate experience, as well as the one that's connecting with you?
That's right. Yeah, basically the way it would work. Basically the way it would work, it's say one person comes to me and they want to have it can even be, for example, if somebody comes and says, I have unresolved issues with my mother, but my mother's already passed on. We can have somebody, or myself, I can facilitate and stand in as well. But it's nicer to have two people. And I can have somebody that can stand in for the mother that's already passed on, or for the husband that doesn't feel like he wants to come to this woo-woo stuff, you know. But then as we're going in, I always ask through muscle feedback testing, is it safe and appropriate for this person that's standing in, as well as the person that we're working with. And the way it works is basically the person standing in, either myself or someone else, becomes a radio, and we're dialing to the frequency of that person we're working with. I could go on some really cool stories. I have to actually start writing down some case stories because mind blown. But it becomes pretty amazing. And like I said, my first experience.
This is a whole level of healing that I did not know existed when I was in counseling and therapy.
Yeah.
And hands down transformational for me in my life. And if you have not experienced it, for those that are listening, please connect with Claudia, or please find somebody to experience this with. 100%, this is transformational.
Yeah, it is so pretty powerful. Amazing. I feel so honored to be able to do this work, and there's many different modalities within modalities I can do. But you know, we're just talking about the relationship stuff, so I'm using that one as an example. And you know, as back to your question of how I offer work, I can either do this if someone is in the Comox Valley in person, but work can also be done online, and I prefer to actually expand that part of my work a little bit more, because it's just, I'm able to help more people, right? I'm talking to you now. Over on, and who knows who could come in this way. I have actually one of my most long-term clients is down island, and she's unable to drive, so we've had some amazing online sessions together. There is small limitations to some of the things I can't do online, but everything else is possible. And so that's a part of my work, is like either online sessions or in person. I do hands-on energy work as well, and sometimes there is some big energy that can be moved. That's also a possibility, and I love that part as well. But where my heart is really is in this kind of magic, you know. That's the part that really lights me up.
It really is magic. And it's so special, and it's so important, and it's so needed. And I will also add, it collapses time. It's literally like you could spend 10 years in counseling talking about the same thing, and no disrespect to that modality. But you go in and energy is so different. You have the right intention.
I've had a really difficult relationship with my son's father, and co-parenting over the time that we were separated. It was really difficult. But as my son was still quite little, I did my training in Psyche, and then pretty soon after, I had somebody stand in for him. And of course, he never knew this about, and the challenges were still the same. But what happens in the brain, now you're not coming from one side or another in reactive mode, you face each other in whole brain ways, and it just became so much easier to deal with each other. And not only that, over the time, we were able to create a connection, a relationship that is genuine, and we're actually really good friends now. And it's like the people that have known us back then, if you told them back then that's possible, they would have said, there's no way in the world that's ever going to happen.
I would echo that. It takes you from a state of unconscious reacting, where you can pause and respond in self-leadership. which is so different, because then you're reparenting yourself, your children then see, and it's just this beautiful ripple effect. And that's
Yeah.
that like kindness and the calmness and the more joyful experiences come from, because you're not reacting from like wounding. You're
not reacting from fight flight, because
Totally.
you're like the animal that, if
Yep.
I look at my little dog, if another dog comes up and sniffs a bit too long, she'll snap at it.
Totally.
It's like she's like, I don't know if I'm safe.
Totally.
We're
So you have a meditation on
Yeah.
forgiveness. I think this is a perfect opportunity to talk about that.
Yeah, I can share that meditation.
Yeah.
It's a little bit an extraction of some of the work. This is actually something out of holo energetics, which is a different modality I support. But it's basically a forgiveness process. It's about the parts. I feel like forgiveness is a tricky one. I want to talk about that a little tiny bit too. It's often when we've been really harmed, and people have had terrible stories. I've heard many terrible stories. It's like the idea of forgiving the perpetrator is a bit like, I know I should, and I know a lot of people who have done some work, but honestly, if you go down to the wire, it's like, it feels a bit like you're betraying yourself if you are forgiving, because that also kind of means almost in a way like that was okay. So I feel like the depth of forgiveness work is first you honor your own stuff, and if we're protecting the other person in the process, as we're mentally, emotionally communicate to them what they've done, and where we're really allowed to let her rip and say like, this was all blah 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 blah, it wasn't good, unfiltered, then we're honoring ourselves first. Like that little kid that's allowed to have a huge temper tantrum because it feels that's true right now. And if we're protecting the others from that, we're not hurling that at anybody. And if we're allowed to vent that out, now that vessel is empty, that yuck has all come out. Now we can actually think about allowing that energy of harm, of hurt, of resentment to go. And we allow this other person to be free and really ultimately give ourselves freedom. That's what I feel like we could use a lot globally on a big level.
I love that you just said the word freedom, because I asked you at the beginning what word you wanted to use to anchor our conversation, and you said harmony. And for me, with harmony comes freedom. And that's it's sovereignty. It's freedom. And we all, as humans, it's our birthright to be free.
Yeah.
From all of these stories and attachments, all of the energetic stuckness that we've carried. And it's so powerful that we have the ability and the awareness to start to like move some of this energy and heal and release, because of where we are at in our evolutionary life cycle. We're at the point where we're actually like letting these stories go, and we're creating space to be free. And I just
amazing. Yeah. We're in such a intense, crazy time. But
we're definitely going through the birth canal. But we know that we're birthing something beautiful. We have to trust that we are safe, receive,
and breathe.
prosperity. And oh my gosh, this has been lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you too, Amy. I'm so grateful to have this opportunity, and your kind words and your support in pulling it out of me.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this is my soul, right? Like harmony and masculine and feminine energy.
Tangible,
it's so important, and it's so powerful. And I want to thank you for sharing this space with me and sharing your message, and for all those that want to connect to Claudia's. Oh, your screen's frozen. Just turn your screen
I'm nodding
for a sec really quick.
I don't know what that is again.
That's okay. That's okay. You're nodding. So there we go. We're good.
There you go. I was just not agreeing a lot.
Totally. Well, this is what I mean about energy, right? And it's a little bit comical.
What is going on?
I just have to laugh. So
hilarious.
For anybody that wants to connect into Claudia, I'll put all of her contact info at the bottom. You'll get a link to her free meditation, and I think that's it. So yeah, and then if anybody has any other questions about this topic, you know where to find us. And this has been really beautiful and lovely.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy.
Do you have something that you would like to close with and share as a little nugget of wisdom?
Yeah, I just want to come back to the same that I said earlier, kindness to self, and watch that inner critic. You know, it's a process. We're walking ourselves towards that. So if you find yourself, you catch yourself being judgy with yourself, with others, it's okay. Start over. That's just showing awareness. Don't be hard on yourself because you're not there yet. That's my biggest suggestion, my biggest request from you, to be kind with yourself and be kind in the process of learning how to be kind.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well said. Have a lovely day, everybody, and we'll see you next time.